Guys, it is a huge pleasure for me to welcome our guest here on the Elite Sports Podcast, Mr. Derek Phillips, aka Billy Riggins from Friday Night Lights. As you can see, I'm a fan, just a little bit of a fan. In fact, I'd say Friday Night Lights is probably my favorite show of all time. Let's just get that out of the way right here. So much so that we elicited the services of Brad Leland to do our narration for us for our SEC football documentary, which comes out this summer.
Dude, that's beautiful. I love that. Brad is literally one of my favorite people on the
planet. You do a pretty good Brad too, by the way, on the podcast.
Not according to him. He literally called me the other day and was like, Derek, I've got a little problem with your Brad Leland impression. You got to work on it, man. He goes, back when we were shooting the show, I feel like it was tight, but it's not so tight anymore, man. You just need to listen to me for a little bit longer.
Well, 10 years, it's been 10 years. It's been 11 actually since the show went off the air after 5 seasons, and you're getting a chance to go back and to relive all this. You're taking us all back to the wonderful fictional town of Dillon, Texas, and on your podcast that you do with Stacey Oristano, who played Mindy, your wife, and Tyra Collette's sister. Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, a Friday Night Lights rewatch. That's the name of the show. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, which is all over the place now. And your website, cleareyesfullheartspod.com. You got some cool merch and the links to everything. So what's it been like for you? I think you're 8 episodes in right now. And
I think we've released 7 episodes, and we just finished up on like the 13th episode. We've just recorded the 13th. It's been a whirlwind. I'll be honest with you. It's going down nostalgia lane for sure. Sometimes it's actually difficult to watch the show, just because you remember this wonderful time that you had in your life 10, 15 years ago with this great group of people. And it makes me miss those times, because it just really was such a special, magical moment for all of us that were working on it. And we all loved each other so much. So that was part of the reason that I agreed to do this podcast, was just the fact that, number one, there wasn't anything in the space really like this. There are other shows that I'm a fan of, like West Wing or Sopranos, and I've listened to their podcasts, but there was nothing like that for Friday Night Lights. And Stacey and I kind of agreed that this should be kind of a love letter to this show that both of us cared so much about and had such a huge impact on both of our lives.
Well, I'm glad you've done it. You're doing it tremendously, and you're doing it justice, and you're getting some tremendous stories and a lot of stuff I didn't even know. And that's from a huge fan that like delves into all this stuff. And I've learned so much, and so glad you guys are doing it and enjoying it. So, I mean, when you go back, you've kind of stated during the podcast that you've seen the show since it came out. This is maybe Stacey's first time watching, but for you, you've seen it, it's been a while. As you go back and as you watch it and you see Billy Riggins, I think your character, the arc is there. When you think about from season 1 to season 5, your character and maybe Tyra would be one that maybe has as gratifying an arc, if you will. Where you came from season 1 to season 5, your character, you become a coach with Coach Taylor and East Dillon and all that you've kind of go through. What's it like going back and just kind of watching Billy Riggins grow as a character, as a person? It's really remarkable.
There's so many thoughts. I mean, just going back and watching it. I mean, this is one of the things, just watching the pilot episode again. I remember at the time thinking that this was going to be something really special, or that this was a really special experience that I was having. So I remembered where I was and what I was thinking in those moments. I remember specifically being in the pilot and Peter Berg asking me to improv a scene. And I remember a cold bead of sweat like running down my armpit, because you're just not asked to do that very often as an actor on camera. Not for a television show. And so I remember all those moments so well, and I remember the experience so well. So going back and rewatching it has just kind of been this, as I said, it's been a whirlwind of emotions, honestly. But just in general, the arc that my character had, I mean, I think you really got to see Billy kind of grow as a person, as a father, as a brother, and frankly, as a human being. And I'm just so thankful to the writers for that opportunity.
Something about you I didn't know is that you're actually from Miami. You were so genuine. Your character was so perfect. You just seemed like any old Texas former high school football player that you would run into at the local Senoritas Cantina, right? But you're from Miami, so does that mean that you're a Hurricanes fan, a Dolphins fan? Like, who do you cheer for?
Both, man. I'm a diehard Hurricanes fan, diehard Dolphins fan. It's been a tough go the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's
with
going to
the
be rough
Dolphins.
tonight too. They play the Ravens.
Yeah.
It's just not going well, but
I'm a little worried about that. Yeah. But yeah, being from Miami, man, here's the deal. I went to college in Texas.
yes.
So I kind of got introduced to that's a funny thing. My history with Friday Night Lights is such a weird experience because I got to college. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And I played football in high school. I wasn't necessarily any good, but I played.
Same.
And Florida football is a huge deal. It's just the pageantry in Texas. There's nothing like it any place on the planet. I mean, we'd go, like, I went to a small 1A school and played football there. But like, you know, you go to the 5A games in Miami, and now I think they're all the way up to like 6 and 7A in Miami. But there'd maybe be 5,000 people in the stands.
Sure.
But I remember, you know, a buddy of mine when I was in college talking to me about the book Friday Night Lights, because the book had come out probably 6 years prior to that. And it was like the talk of everybody who played high school football in Texas. And I was like, dude, I played football in Miami. I know what it's like. And a buddy of mine took me to a high school football game at Clear Lake where he played ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away. And Clear Lake, I mean, they were good, but they weren't, you know, state champions or anything. Clear Lake High School at that point in time, I think they had like a 50,000 seat stadium or something close to that. Just insane and packed to the gills with, I mean, there's nothing like that in Florida. I mean, I would say that the caliber of athlete is equal to, if not better than, but there's nothing like the pageantry of a Texas football game.
Yeah.
So that was a real education. I think part of it is the fact that, you know, Texas is a gigantic state. It's very spread out. And so you've got these crosstown rivalries all over the place. And so you've got small town A versus small town B.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this like rivalry that's been going on with these small towns for years and years and years. And so football's a way for them to kind of have their grudge match every single year. And
it is community. It's so community based. And like you, I've been, I'm from Missouri, live in Missouri, and I've been down to Texas several times, you know, I went to a high school playoff game there that was at the Jerry, you know, the AT&T stadium there in Dallas, and just was blown away about that. I've been to a couple places in the Dallas Metroplex down to Austin, and it is absolutely like that. In fact, I think I was in Austin for a Mizzou Texas game the day after you guys filmed the season 3 finale in Austin at
University of Texas.
And I didn't know this. I would have been an extra. I would have been the greatest moment of my life. And I think I missed out on my opportunity. So,
oh man, we would have loved to have you.
I know
that was, to be honest with you, filling those stadiums for those games. I believe that Texas is Darrell K. Royal.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was tough filling stadiums. So what they would do is they would take like we'd probably have 1,000 background actors, and they'd put them in one section. And then they'd shoot a scene on the other side of the field and put those actors in the other section.
Digitally fill it in.
And then, and they digitally fill it in sometimes. But yeah, they'd move those background actors like all over the place, swap costumes for them. So they'd be wearing like Dylan blue in one, and then switch over to like an orange or burnt orange for whatever other team we were playing that week.
Well, there is a magic to the show, and you talk about it on the podcast a lot, which is the on location shooting, the fact that it felt so genuine. I've never felt like that in a show before, where I was just, I guess the feeling as a fan is that you're just dropped into this world, and it's just kind of Katie bar the door. Like you're dropped into this world, and now you are just a casual observer to all these things that are going on. And whether it be the camera work, the editing, everything about it felt so genuine. And I think that's something that lost on with other shows that don't shoot on location, but there's challenges to the on location shooting. What talk about like the Riggins house. Did you guys have to pay somebody to take over that house? Or was it always that trash? Did you guys trash it up?
It was that trash, man. Here's the deal. I didn't realize this until like the 3rd season of the show. But we're shooting a scene in the 3rd season, and we're in one of the bedrooms, and there was a big, like national championship ring, Texas national championship ring. And I picked it up and I go to props and I go, dude, did you guys just leave this laying around? This is a like national championship ring. And props goes, oh, it's probably the guys who live here. And I went,
wow, somebody
lives here? And they're like, yeah, it's a couple of UT students. One of them's a football player. And I'm like, somebody lives in this house? And they were like, yeah. You got to understand, the smell in that house was like nothing you've ever, you talk about a kinesthetic response as an actor. There was a day one time where I opened up the refrigerator to grab a beer out, and literally the minute I opened the door in the middle of a take, everyone goes, no, 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 no. And I opened it, and the smell that came out of that fridge, we closed the door. Everyone had to exit the house for like 5 minutes and just kind of let it air out. I believe by the fourth season, maybe, of the show, I think production wound up renting the house
Thankfully.
at that point in time. So there was no one living in it for like maybe the last 2 years or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there were bed bugs. There was all kinds of, that's the adventures you deal with shooting on location.
Well,
I've shot in so many like abandoned hospitals that are probably just loaded with asbestos. Yeah, that's the joy of shooting on location.
but you get the genuine nature of it. It works.
Yeah. Here's a prime example. There's a scene where Kyle Chandler is walking up to the Riggins house one time. And as they were shooting the scene, Kyle comes walking up to the Riggins house and literally stepped in dog poop.
I think they kept that too.
Yeah, and they totally kept it, and it just played because it's like, of course you would step in dog poop walking up to the Riggins house. If not dog poop, some kind of disgusting substance in that yard. And it was just one of those little lovely moments it's such a Friday Night Lights thing. Most shows would have cut right in that moment, had somebody run over, pick up the dog poop, clean it up. We don't want Kyle ever having that problem. But it's like, we just kind of rolled with that kind of stuff. But that's a testament to the way that I think Peter Berg set up the show and just the way we shot. I mean, we shot on 16 millimeter. Everything was handheld. We were allowed to improv. We were allowed the freedom to kind of, shy away from the script at moments. There was always a backdrop, and I always want to be careful with that because the writers did create these beautiful moments, but there were times where it was like, we knew we had to hit point A, point B, point C. How we decided to get there as actors was kind of our own little journey. And there are times where you work on a show and a writer will come up to you and be like, there's actually 3 O's in that sentence. You have to say O, O, O. Friday Night Lights never did that. We were allowed that freedom that if it didn't roll trippingly off the tongue, we were allowed to kind of make it our own. And I think that added to that natural, realistic vibe of the show.
Like you said in the podcast, it's like a character. Dylan Texas is a character in the show, and that's a great way to put it. And this show's finding new audiences because I had to be honest. For a while, I was pissed because they took it. It was gone from Netflix for years, and so I get a Peacock subscription as soon as Peacock comes out, and there's Friday Night Lights. Of course, I have the DVDs too, but you don't always want to get up and put it in there.
I hear you.
And now it's on Netflix and Peacock, so we were doubling down. Yeah. And the show's finding new audiences. People keep finding it. It's a show that you talk a lot about on the podcast, the ratings that they weren't so high and that you were always kind of touch and go. But now in streaming, which who could have known that would ever be a thing in 2006, 7, right? And now here it is finding new audiences and people love it every bit as much as they ever did. It's winning awards still to this day. You won Emmys. I mean, the show lives on and it lives on. And whatever streaming service decides to have it for this month or two, it lives on.
Yeah, well, I think that's just a testament to everybody that was involved in it. I think that the show works because it taps into a human truth and an emotional truth. I've hung out with people and talked to people that are from all over the world that have watched this show. They don't have any idea what American football is like, but it still strikes a chord. I've always kind of said in describing the show that it's, excuse me, literally about as much about football as Grey's Anatomy is the practice of medicine. I mean, it's the backdrop. It's the thing that kind of ties everyone in this small town together, but it's really just a show about human beings and life in a small town.
A tremendous drama, one of the greatest ever. So you've had some tremendous guests. On the show so far. You had Brad, our good friend Brad Leland. You've talked to Adrian Palicki. You've had Grandma Saracen. What can you give us a teaser? What do you got coming up? Is there anything that you can tease that you might have on the horizon here in future episodes? For sure, man.
Well, I spoke to Taylor Kitsch the other day, and Taylor Kitsch swore up and down that he was going to come on the show at the end of this year. So at the start of next year. So I'm going to hold him to that. But we've already recorded Gaius Charles. Gaius Charles is coming up. And we already recorded Kevin Rankin, who plays Herc. We've got Liz Michael coming on, who plays Mama Smash. I mean, I think we've got like 4 or 5 or maybe 6 people that are already recorded in the can, ready to go. So that's the thing that's really exciting about it is, I mean, I love all these people, but time gets away from you. Kevin Rankin, for instance, no longer lives in LA. Kevin and I shared a birthday. So like every year, like we were born literally the same day, same year, within like an hour and a half of each other.
Wow.
And found that out while we were working together. And, Kevin was one of those people I used to see all the time in LA, but Kevin and his family moved to Texas. And so I don't get to see Kevin as often. So this was just kind of a perfect excuse to just call Kevin up on the phone and have an hour-long conversation with him about the show and about his life now and about everything that's going on. And that's been the really fun thing about doing this podcast, is reconnecting with all these people that you love, but for whatever reasons, you just haven't had the same kind of contact that you did, 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we're friends with Jay Head, who played
Mhm.
Bo. And I was like, that's a perfect one. I hope you get a hold of him too at some point, because he's a fellow Baylor grad. He went to
Oh,
Baylor.
I didn't know he wound up going to Baylor.
Or he's from Waco or went to Baylor, one of the two.
Yeah.
Or it lives. He's a Baylor fan to the till. We talk all about
That's
it all the
awesome.
time. They got
I
the Longhorn.
remember the state championship game. I must have. So, spoiler alert, we won the state championship game. This is at the old Dallas Cowboys Stadium. And I remember they had this moment where they wanted me to pick Jay up and run across the football field with him. And he's not a big dude, just a little guy at that point in time in his life. But we must have shot that scene 15, 20 times. Kyle Chandler had strep throat. He was sick as a dog. And at one point, I'm walking back and I got Jay over my shoulder, and Kyle looks at me. Kyle looks like he's dying, but I look like I'm doubly dying. And he's like, "You all right, man?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't think so at all." It was like 80 degrees outside, and I had a big old heavy jacket on because it's supposed to be wintertime. But yeah, he's a good kid. I say kid, he's an adult now. It's crazy. That's how much time has gone by. But yeah.
You talk about Kevin Rankin. We talk about, Jay, who played Bo. It was a little bit of foreshadowing, because you kind of wound up becoming his surrogate stepfather there for a little while.
Yeah.
Drive your brother out of the home for a few episodes. But have you ever been a part of a show, and you've done a lot of things? You've done a lot of guest spots. You've done a lot of things in your career, that every single character, whether it be a star, whether it be Kyle Chandler, whether it be Taylor Kitsch, whether it be, somebody like Minka Kelly, or down to someone that's in one episode or two episodes, that they fit so perfectly into the confines of what the show is, and to the point where you couldn't imagine anyone else playing any role on the entire show. That's unbelievable.
I literally, that right there is just a testament to Linda Lowy, who is the casting director of this show, but also Beth Sepko, who was the local Texas casting director. I mean, the people that they brought in, there's a reason this show won an Emmy for casting. They just nailed it, across the board. It was always so exciting whenever you'd get a script and read it. There's this cool character that's coming up, or there's an interesting character that's going to be popping up, and you'd read it and then just wait to see who they cast. For instance, I knew my dad was they had written a storyline for our father, so I was very interested to see who they wound up.
Oh, that was perfect.
To find out it was Brett Cullen was spectacular.
And he's a legend, man. He's so good.
Is. And he's got
the replacements.
Dude, he's got some of the greatest stories of anyone I've ever met in this business. I also had the opportunity to work with Brett. This is actually a funny story. So I for whatever reason, I changed phones, and like Brett and I used to hang out when we were doing Friday Night Lights, and I lost his phone number. And I didn't have it. So I called Brad Leland up on the phone, and I said, or actually I texted Brad, and I said, "Hey Brad, do you have Brett Cullen's number?" 2 seconds later, my phone rings. "Hey man, what's going on?" He goes, "Dude." And I said, "Hey, I can't really talk for very long. I was down in Miami. My dad had just gotten food." And Brad Leland goes, "Oh dude, I forget sometimes that you're from Miami." He goes, "Oh, dude, you guys just picked up that quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. I saw that kid play at Texas A&M, man. He is good." In the background, my dad's going, "Derek, come on, we got lunch." And Brad Leland is still going. Brad literally talked my ear off for like 30 minutes. All right. Finally, I go, "Brad, I got to go. Do you have Brett Cullen's number?" "No, man, I don't have his number."
That is so Brad. It's so crazy, Derek, because I have a similar story, because I'm in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is here, tearing it up. Well, into the last few weeks.
And Brad's a Texas Tech guy. So
Brad, I know this now because he called me to tell me all about it. Mm-hmm. Saw Patrick Mahomes start his very first game at Texas Tech. He saw him. He knows exactly who he is from White House, Texas, just an hour down the road from where Brad lives in Tyler. So we've had the exact same thing happen to
Yeah.
us. And
So the whole reason I was calling Brad for
yeah,
Brett's number
and you
is I
didn't even
wound
get
up,
the number.
yeah, I wound up booking a part in that movie 42, and I found out Brett
Yeah.
Cullen was going to be in it as well. And I never wound up getting Brett's number, but then one day I'm on set and Brett comes walking up and I said, "Hey Dad, you want to play catch?" So,
Oh, that's so
so
perfect.
Brett and I were playing catch on the set of 42. I mean, this business is so crazy sometimes, and I'm so thankful for the opportunities I've had. But yeah, I got to play catch with my dad from Friday Night Lights on 42. Whenever I text Brett these days, I still say, "Hey Dad." He calls me son.
It wasn't quite the magical, Field of Dreams sort of father-son relationship.
No, it was
Like
not.
from that, it was, but it was so real. That episode where Tim goes down, and you'll be getting to this one coming up here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear you guys talk
Yeah,
about
and we've
that.
got Brett Cullen coming on the show as well.
Oh, see, look at this.
Yeah.
It's all on. It's going to be so great.
Look,
I can't wait.
The way we're looking at it, if you ever had a decent sized part on this show, we want you on at some
let's
point in
go.
time. Because the reality is, I mean, the last thing I think most people want to do is listen to Stacey and I yap about it all day long. I want to get as many guests as we possibly can, because I just find, look, man, I'm a fan of the show myself, and I want to hear all their stories. Everyone's story is different than mine. We've had some great stories so far. Some things, I mean, Catherine Willis, who played Jason Street's mom, was on recently, and she'll be on an episode coming up shortly. And she told us this story. I don't want to give it away, but like, everyone's got these great, amazing stories that we never even heard before. So it's just been so fun finding out how everyone became a part of this show,
Well, and you got 4.5 seasons to go. This is going to last.
Yeah.
This is, by my calculations, this should last about a year or so to do this, right?
It'll be a little bit longer than that, I would imagine, because right now we're basically recording an episode a week. We may wind up doing like 2 episodes a week, but our plan is to do 90 episodes total. So there'll be 75 episodes for the actual show. And then I think there's going to be like 15 bonus episodes where we'll answer fan questions. So, I mean, altogether, we're going to do 90 episodes. So
yes,
it'll basically be if hopefully we'll be able to start doing 2 episodes a week. At the beginning, it was kind of like, okay, what is this? What are we doing exactly? Now, Stacey and I've kind of got it down like a science, and we're able to pop out the episodes a little quicker. So if everything goes the way we want it to, it'll probably be another 1.5 years of this.
Which is great. That's great for the fans. Yeah. And I tell you, Stacey, we got to bring her up because she does such a great job on this. And she is another character that, when I watched the show the first time, I just thought, wow, this girl, I mean, this is a compliment to her, but did they just pick her up out of a strip club in Austin, Texas?
No, Stacey's actually a theatrically trained.
She is.
Studied in England actress. And
yeah, she is.
Actress. I got to see Stacey perform on stage, not stripping, in a theater production of a play called Urinetown. Once again, not stripping. Stacey is fierce, man. She is
so good.
Literally one of the most talented actresses I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And then on top of it, one of the most giving actresses. And what I mean by that is, she's the type of person that comes up to you before a scene and says, "Hey, what do you need from me in this scene?" Or if a scene's not working, just made me so comfortable to work with, and taught me a lot about how I want to be when I'm around other actors and treat other actors when I'm on set. You want to be that person that's there to help them and make the process more comfortable.
Yeah. And that's yeah.
She's awesome, man. And she's my right-hand man on this show. I mean, I can't imagine doing this show with anybody else. Number one, we just have a great working relationship. But then number two, I mean, as I said before, she's literally one of the most giving people on the planet. And it's abundantly clear on the show. We had one episode where we were still trying to figure out the format of this podcast. And it was like, well, maybe I'm the one who drives the action. We realized very quickly I was terrible at that. And we had Stacey do it from that point on. And Stacey's, I mean, she's basically carrying the load on this podcast. She's basically the play-by-play guy, and I'm kind of the color man,
And I'm so impressed with her, the way she just, like you said, drives the action and brings in the football stuff. Maybe it's her turn to kind of, drive the next part of the episode. And she's Texas through and through, man.
Yeah.
She's a
and
Texas.
She keeps us moving forward and at the right pace.
So good.
I have a tendency to yap incessantly, if you haven't already noticed. And without Stacey, I mean, I'd just be sitting here talking about Brad Leland phone calls and Subway sandwiches for 10 hours. And I don't think anybody wants
equally
to hear
entertaining, though, I will say. Well, Derek, I tell you what, I hope everybody that is listening here will go and subscribe. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere you can get your podcast. Amazon Music now. I think everyone's thrown their hat in the podcasting ring, so it's easy to find. And you guys also take fan questions. What is the best way for people to get fan questions into you guys? What's the email for that?
Once again, this is what Stacey does. I think it's
Okay,
www.cleareyesfullheartspod.com.
I'm on the website here. Clear Eyes Full Hearts Pod at gmail.com.
Yes.
There we go. We got it.
Don't listen to me. Listen to Clint. And when you're listening to the show, listen to Stacey. When it comes to that stuff, I'm so terrible at that. I wouldn't even be able to find my own address if I didn't. But yeah, Stacey has been the one to always say, do the outro on that. So it's www.cleareyesfullheartspod at gmail.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your questions in. Derek, before we let you go, and it's just been an honor. This is kind of surreal, really, to come back kind of full circle. And we wind up working with Brad. We wind up having you on. We want to definitely, and we've actually had Jay on as well. So we're getting a lot of the cast members down. What's going on for you lately? I know that you were on an episode of The Rookie, yeah? In 2000,
I did recently? A couple episodes of The Rookie. I literally just finished up doing the new Call of Duty Vanguard game that just came out. I'm one of the leads in it. So if you play it, you get to play as my character, a guy named Wade Jackson. I've been doing a lot of voiceover stuff recently. I've actually got a voiceover gig later today. I just did DC's Injustice, which is a full-length or a feature-length animated movie where I played Aquaman and Nightwing. And I literally just finished shooting a pilot for Fox called The Last Police, where I'm a series regular in it, and we're crossing our fingers and hoping that it goes. It's a really, really cool concept, kind of a post-apocalyptic end of the world asteroid coming towards Earth thing. And it's a really, really real cool concept. And hopefully I'm praying that Fox agrees to do it, and we'll have a nice long run like we did on Friday Night Lights.
I can't think of anything better for Fox to dig in on. Let's make it happen. That sounds just tremendous. I would be an avid viewer. Derek, it has been such a pleasure to have you here on the Elite Sports Podcast, man. Thank you so much. Continued success on the podcast, and we will be listening for the next couple of years, man. So I'm sure we'll be in touch over that time, and best of luck to you, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Clint. Thank you for having me on the show. Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Can't lose.
Thank you, sir.
See you, bud.